All right, welcome back here to the Xfinity Sports Report, your Colorado High School connection. We continue along and happy to be joined in studio by Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. Kyle, great to see. A busy time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, very busy. Been working all week. Coliseum, back out to hockey. It's going to be, heating up here this next week, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Here you are with us on set at XSR, and probably your wife's upset at me and upset at us. My wife's upset, too. It's that time of year.
I hope she watches, though. Okay.
She does. Oh, yeah. No, every single second of the day. All right, listen, we're going to go through 4A, 5A boys, girls basketball here, get Kyle's thoughts on it, but we're going to start with hockey. Frozen Four Thursday night, and how about Valor Christian? Really the story of the night, I thought. Knocking off the defending champion Monarch 4-0. And hey, Valor Christian hockey is here, aren't they? Yeah,
DeBoer with the hat trick to catalyze that. In the second period, all three of those goals come in to set them up into their first championship game. And it's really been a quick ascension for them, Brian. I mean, George took over there just 3 years ago, a program that had really been losing a lot comparative to their other programs. And here they are in the championship against Regis, who lost to Monarch in the third period last year. They're hungry to get one for the thumb, a fifth ring.
Yep.
And it's going to be a very close game. I mean, Regis and Valor played in the fall league. Valor won 6-5, I believe, in just an absolute shootout. And then they played to a 2-1 game that Regis won earlier in the regular season.
Yeah, George Gwozdecki was talking in the postgame about the fact that, hey, everyone's playing for second place here, but that's probably not going to be the case. Now, we should say that Regis is undefeated, and we saw the highlights. They beat Chaparral, who was a great story. They beat them 7-1. The Raiders are good, though. There's no question about that. And how about the run that they've been on?
Yeah, Connor Kilkenny leading that crew, and you got to give credit to Dan Woodley once again in this position, to capture a state championship. You mentioned being undefeated, and you mentioned Georgia's comment in the post game after their win that, it's really a one-horse race. And yeah, Dan Woodley knows that's not the case. You'll remember a couple seasons ago when Regis beat Monarch in the final up in Loveland, and Monarch was undefeated.
Right.
And it looked like they had it all but secured. Nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah, that was the same story. It was just flipped, where Monarch, everybody expected to win there. Again, Tuesday night, the Pepsi Center. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have the highlights coming up for you next week here on XSR. All right, let's switch to girls basketball. Let's start in Class 4A, and one thing that jumped out, a couple things actually, Kyle. Number one is all of the seeds that had advanced on to the grade 8. We take a look at the bracket there, a 10 seed, 12 seed, 15 seed, and a 20 seed. And when it all shakes out, boy, you get a lot of Southern teams. In fact, 3 of the 4 teams are Southern, except for the defending champs Evergreen. Are they the favorite?
Absolutely. Claudia Dillon is their star, going to University of Missouri on a scholarship to play volleyball, mind you. And she might go down as the best player, maybe the best female athlete in Evergreen high school history. So she's got them on the inside track to a repeat. But hey, wide field, Ricketts, can't overlook them, 15 seed. And then in the other game, Mesa Ridge and Pueblo South, an 8 and the 12 seed. Mesa Ridge has not lost to a 4A opponent all season. Pueblo South, they've been here in this stage before. Coach Shannon Lane is going to have the Colts ready.
All right, how about the 5A girls side? And a lot of the talk going into the grade 8 on Friday, Kyle, was the seeding. And I was talking to Carl Maddie before the game, Regis Jesuit. How do they end up as 6 seed? They're number 1 most of the year, undefeated in the state. They play a national schedule. They have the best player in the state. How did they end up with a 6 seed?
Well, as many know, I've had my particular gripes, especially with this seeding in this 5A bracket. I gave it an F in my reviews of the brackets. But, I mean, I think you look at it, it has to do with the RPI, and there's no classification modifier. So credit Fruita Monument, the coaches, and their players for what they did. They went out, they scheduled a pretty competitive non-conference schedule, but it was filled with a lot of lower classification teams, 3A, 4A teams, Valor, Pueblo West, Colorado Springs Christian. They beat all those teams, which shot them up in the RPI. They beat a couple Utah teams that they brought in, and then they ran the table, of course, in their league. Now, Regis goes out of state to the tougher Nike Tournament of Champions, takes a couple losses, but then comes and wins the Continental League, very tough, doesn't lose in state. A 6 seed, and you look at some of the other seeds, Cherry Creek outside the top 10. They had to meet Regis in the Sweet 16. To me, that's a Final Four battle at least.
Yep.
Hopefully that's something that is maybe taken a look at. I'm an advocate of injecting some sort of human formula or element back into the formula, should I say, because when you look at Regis, Fran Belibi, one of the best high school players in the entire country, and then around her she's got 5 other Division I players. So hands down number 1 seed.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Regis down early in that game against Horizon. They would come back and really run away with it. In my mind, Regis is the favorite, but certainly this is going to be a tough Final Four as you have Fossil Ridge. They're going to take on Grandview, and of course the defending champs. Can't overlook them.
No, defending champs, and they overcame a very tough Highlands Ranch squad to get to the Final Four. Layla V. Hill running and screaming all over the Coliseum after that win. Very emotional for her, obviously. She went to Ranch, transferred to Grandview. Big part in their championship last year. Now she's leading a very young but talented team. Allison O'Grady, that freshman who's a 6'3" or 6'4". I mean, that's really just indicative of the young talent in this Grandview team. Of course, Fossil, they slayed the number 1 seed in Fruta. And in the other game, talked a lot about Regis, but hey, Lakewood, Camilla Imspo, and then Kira Imspo, shout out to her from the bench, kind of the heart and soul of that team, even though she's been injured all year.
All right, to the boys' side, and well, let's talk about those Pueblo South Colts. They get the job done in the sport of football, 4A state champs, Kyle. Here they are, sport of basketball. They look like probably the favorite going into Friday's games at the Coliseum.
And you talk about the seeding. They got the top seed, which I thought they absolutely deserved. But then what's the reward for that? Valor Christian, defending champs in the Grade 8, who really, their record was totally deceiving this year. Very good. And they dispatched of them thanks to some of those football players you're talking about. Marcel Barbie, Jeremy Cody, both in double figures in the win. And they're going to take on Longmont, which Coach Jeff Kloster, I know he's going to have that team prepared, obviously.
Yeah, and how about Longmont? The big win over Falcon. Luke Johnson had 29 in that game. 3rd year in 4 tries for Longmont going to the Final Four. Then you have Lewis Palmer, and how about the end of that game? They knock off Whitefield 70-67. Matt Ragsdale, the game winner. Remember, Lewis Palmer was here last year in the state championship game.
Yeah, came up just short to Valor Christian. And in talking to all the coaches before the season, everyone said, hey, Lewis Palmer, Coach Bill Benton, they got a ton back. Watch out for them. And, hey, here they are once again looking for that state championship, but they got to go through Pueblo West. I mean, Coach Bobby Tyler, he's going to have his team prepared. And Smyer Williams is one of the best athletes in all of 5A or 4A, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they lose Siementhal last year, and yet here they come back this year, and they're right back in the Final Four. Of course, Pueblo West 2016 4A boys state champions. All right, to Class 5A, and boy, the madness of March, it sprung upon us there at the Denver Coliseum. First things first, let's start with the first game, Smoky Hill and George, and boy, that was a great game, and it was John L. Fugit with the game winner.
Yeah, Fugit with ice in his veins, man. And Andy Cross, one of our photographers, got a great shot of him coming across the lane, putting up the teardrop floater over Smoky Hill's outstretched arms, and it was John Harge, I believe, all 6, 7 of them coming up in the lane. It bounced around and went in, and George gets the win. And on the back of their warm-ups before that game, it said unfinished business. And, we talked about Lewis Palmer having unfinished business. The Patriots have that after coming up short to Eagle Crest in the title last year.
Yep, and then game number 2 on Saturday afternoon there at the Coliseum, Thunder Ridge and Doherty. Now, Doherty lost by 17 to Thunder Ridge early in the season. They got the rematch, and boy, that was a nip and tuck game the entire way. And the ending of that game, well, it triumphed the ending of the Smoky George game, believe it or not.
Yeah, it looked like Doherty had forced overtime with a late 3 with under 5 seconds to 4.
But they hit off the back of the rim, above the backboard, and came through.
And just the air went out of the Coliseum, and then it exploded.
Yeah.
And everyone's thinking overtime. No, Thunder Ridge inbounds the ball. Kyson Hammonds brings up the floor, and what does this star do? He doesn't force a shot as the defense collapses around him. He dishes it for the pass and the easy bucket to win it to Bailey Burke. So great team play there, and that gets them back into the Final Four.
Yep, again, Thunder Ridge is going to take on Grandview, who beat Chaparral, and they get past Ronnie DeGray and those Wolverines. DeGray had 38 in the Sweet 16 game, and they're on. And then Rock Canyon, they knocked off Overland, who was one of the hottest teams in the state of Colorado after starting off the year at 1-7. Who do you like in this Final Four? You got the great story in Rock Canyon. Obviously, Thunder Ridge only has the 1 loss in the season. Grandview has a solid bunch, and then, of course, you have George, who's looking for a little redemption.
Right. I mean, it's a toss-up, and that's what I love about where we're at right now. You look at some of the other main sports in Colorado, like football even, even at the Final Four stage or the semifinal stage, might be some lopsided games. Wasn't so this year, but has been in past years. But in this basketball bracket, I think Rock Canyon George and Thunder Ridge Grandview, it's going to come down to the wire. Rock Canyon, Sam Maston, Tyson Gilbert. Can they control the tempo against John L. Fugit? Can Mo Diallo inside kind of bruise around Joe Bryson, some of those Rock Canyon big men? Thunder Ridge Grandview. Grandview, I mean, they've had their downs this year, hence the 6th seed, but here they are with a chance at Thunder Ridge, the Continental League champions, who I mentioned Kyson Hammonds, but they got two other senior guards, Tyson Cruikshank and Justin McCaw, who have been absolutely key. Justin McCaw came over from Austria last year. So just great storylines all around. It
should be a lot of fun. And again, if you can't make it out to the Denver Coliseum, go to the Denver Post. You guys will have it on the radio.
Yeah, Post Preps Radio, girls Final Four and boys Final Four, and then all the championship games on Saturday. Live broadcast on Post Preps Radio on denverpost.com/preps.
There you go. Kyle Newman, appreciate it. Thank you for your insights.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
All right, Kyle Newman, the Denver Post. We'll take a timeout, wrap up the program. Just about out of time. Back after this on the Xfinity Sports Report. The Xfinity Sports Report tonight is brought to you by Assured Partners of Colorado, powered through partnership. By Vectra Bank, big enough to count, small enough to care. By Sam's Club, savings made simple. And by Pepsi, the joy of Pepsi Cola.